My name is Emily Carter, and for most of my adult life I was convinced I was fighting the greatest battle in history, the liberation of women. I had a PhD in gender studies, I lectured at a respected university, and I was a loud, proud radical feminist. Islam, in my mind, was the clearest symbol of everything I opposed. I remember standing outside a mosque in London, holding a sign that said, "My body, my choice," chanting slogans with a group of activists. Muslim women walked past us quietly, wearing hijabs and long dresses. I looked at them with a mixture of anger and pity. I was sure they were brainwashed. I told myself, if only they knew what freedom feels like. If only they could think for themselves. My hatred of Islam wasn't based on deep knowledge. It was based on headlines, documentaries, and a few personal experiences. One of those experiences was my grandmother. When I was a teenager, she married a Muslim man. A year later, she converted to Islam and started wearing hijab. My family reacted like she had died. They called her oppressed, weak, controlled. I believed them. When she talked about feeling closer to God and more at peace, I rolled my eyes. I thought she was justifying her own submission. Years passed. I built my career on criticizing religion, especially Islam. I gave talks about patriarchal structures, led protests, and wrote articles that went viral in feminist circles. So when a publisher approached me and suggested I write a book about Islam and the oppression of women, it felt like destiny. I accepted immediately. I began my research certain I already knew the conclusion. I interviewed women who had left Muslim-majority countries, collected stories of forced marriages and honor killings, and highlighted the worst examples of cultural practices I could find. These stories were real and painful, but I treated them as if they represented all of Islam. I didn't bother to ask if culture, politics, or poverty played any role. For me, the villain was simple, religion, but then something started to bother me. The more I researched, the more I came across Muslim women who didn't fit my narrative at all. They were educated, successful, confident, and unapologetically Muslim. One of them was Asha, a lawyer from France. I interviewed her expecting to hear about discrimination and oppression. Instead, she told me, "I chose Islam. I chose the hijab. Before Islam, I was constantly judged for my looks, my body, my relationships. Now, people have to deal with my mind first. That's liberation, not oppression." Another was Layla, an engineer from Canada. She said, "Islam gave me boundaries that protect me. Not because I'm weak, but because I'm valuable." I wrote down her words, but inside I was annoyed. I thought Stockholm Syndrome. Internalized patriarchy. Anything except the possibility that she might actually be right. The turning point came when I interviewed a British neurosurgeon named Fatima. She agreed to meet me in a quiet cafe near the hospital where she worked. She wore a simple black hijab and a long coat. I expected her to be shy, maybe intimidated by my academic background. Instead, she looked at me with clear, steady eyes that unsettled me more than any argument. I started with my usual questions. Do you ever feel limited by your religion as a woman? Restricted? Controlled? She smiled slightly. Limited? She repeated. Tell me, Emily, who taught you that freedom means taking off more clothes? Her question caught me off guard. I hesitated before answering. Freedom means having a choice. She nodded. Exactly. And I chose this. You speak as if I'm not intelligent enough to see if I'm being oppressed. I'm a neurosurgeon. I operate on the human brain. Do you really think I can't recognize my own reality? I shifted uncomfortably. She continued. You say Islam oppresses women. Do you know that Islam gave women the right to own property, inherit wealth, choose their husband, seek divorce, receive education over 1,400 years ago? Europe didn't give women any of those rights until the last century. Yet you call my religion backward. I had heard this claim before, but coming from her, it hit differently. I demanded, where does it say that? Show me. She reached into her bag, pulled out a small Qur'an, and opened it. Here, she said, reading. Whoever does righteousness, whether male or female, while he is a believer, we will surely cause him to live a good life, and we will surely give them their reward according to the best of what they used to do. Then she read, The believing men and believing women are allies of one another. They enjoin what is right and forbid what is wrong. She looked up. This is not a book that erases women. It's a book that lifts them. I didn't have an immediate response. I left that cafe with pages of notes, but also with a heavy feeling I didn't want to name: doubt. Doubt in my own certainty. Doubt in my entire worldview. That night, I went home and opened a translation of the Qur'an on my laptop. At first, I read looking for problems, contradictions, proof that this was all just a cleverly disguised system of control. But as I read, something unexpected happened. I found verses that spoke directly to my heart in ways I couldn't explain. I read about Maryam, the mother of Jesus, how she was honored, defended, protected by God Himself. I read verses addressing both men and women as believers, promising them equal spiritual rewards. I read about modesty, not as a tool to hide women, but as a way to protect human dignity in a world that reduces people to their bodies. I didn't agree with everything. Some verses made me uncomfortable. Some rulings went against everything I had been taught. But at the same time, I felt an honesty in the text that I had never felt in academic theories or opinion pieces. This book didn't flatter me. It challenged me. It confronted my ego, my arrogance, my illusions of control. For weeks, I lived a double life. By day, I lectured against religion, spoke about patriarchal oppression, and continued writing my book. By night, I sat alone reading the Qur'an, watching lectures, and listening to Muslims explain their faith. I started to realize that my problem was not with God, it was with the way I had been taught to see Him. I had grown up rejecting a version of religion that was empty, distant, and hypocritical. This was different. This was raw, demanding, living. The fear came next. What if I believed? What would that mean? I thought of my colleagues, my students, my feminist friends. What would they say if I, the loudest critic of religion, suddenly said, I think Islam might be true? I could almost hear their laughter, their anger, their sense of betrayal. In the middle of this storm, I called my grandmother. We hadn't spoken properly in years. When she answered, her voice was warm and calm, like nothing had ever happened between us. Grandma, I said, my throat tight. Can I ask you something? Of course, darling, she replied. When you became Muslim, did you feel like you lost yourself? Did you feel smaller? There was a pause. Then she said, gently, no, Emily, I didn't lose myself. I found who I was meant to be. Before Islam, I was constantly trying to prove my worth to people, to men, to society, even to myself. After Islam, I realized my worth was already given by the one who created me. I didn't need to perform anymore. I just needed to be His servant. Her words hit me like a wave. She continued, the hijab didn't make me disappear. It allowed me to appear as I truly am. You thought I became quiet because I was controlled. I became quiet because, for the first time, my heart was at peace. After that call, I couldn't hide from myself anymore. I stopped pretending this was just academic research. This was personal. This was about my soul. One evening, alone in my apartment, with my laptop open to an English translation of the Qur'an, I reached the end of my resistance. I had a choice: keep fighting what I now recognized as truth, or surrender to it. I closed my eyes and whispered, in broken Arabic first, then in English, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. I expected fireworks, overwhelming emotion, something dramatic. Instead, what I felt was a deep, steady, quiet relief, like I had been holding my breath for years and finally exhaled. The consequences came quickly. Some of my colleagues stopped speaking to me. I lost invitations, projects, and friends. I was called a traitor, a hypocrite, a victim of brainwashing. My feminist circle disowned me. They said, you can't be a feminist and a Muslim at the same time. But they didn't see what I saw. They didn't feel what I felt when I stood in prayer, forehead on the ground, finally admitting that I was not the center of the universe. They didn't understand the way my heart softened when I read, and do not despair of the mercy of Allah. They didn't know what it meant to feel truly seen by the one who created me. Today, when I wear my hijab and walk through the same streets where I once protested against it, I smile at the irony. I used to think I was free while chained to society's expectations. Now people think I am oppressed, while I am more free than I have ever been. I didn't abandon women's rights. I just found their true foundation, not in theories that change every decade, but in a revelation that has guided hearts for 14 centuries. I didn't lose my voice. I just stopped using it to shout at the wrong enemy. I thought I was fighting for women when I was really fighting against the very faith that honors them. I thought submission was weakness. Now I know. Submitting to people breaks you. Submitting to God heals you. My name is Emily Carter. I was a radical feminist. Now I am a Muslim woman. And for the first time in my life, I know who I am.